Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache Snow from NacheSnow.com. That's NacheSnow. Thank you for tuning in to another episode, and happy March. Of course, I love March. It is my birthday month, but it's just like March is just a beautiful month. It's like the color green or the number 3. I feel like all 3 of those things make me happy. So that was really random. But anywho, I think March is going to be an amazing month. If you read the newsletter, I talked about kind of what I did in January and February and how March is all about execution. And if you don't get the newsletter, please head on over to NacheSnow.com/newsletter to get to the form. Or if you go into any of my pages, you could just put your name and email address in, and you will get a couple of emails a month from me where I'm just highlighting some of my articles, my podcast, and then I'm also just talking to you about like what's going on with me, what I'm learning, and if I have any courses coming up. And what I could tell from the clicks is people love my link love section. So at the bottom of each newsletter, I just find random stuff. So it could be health, products, something related to business, you name it. Like if I find it, I'll just like share my random finds with you. But a lot of people told me that they love that section. So if for nothing else, sign up for the link love section. But that's NacheSnow.com/newsletter. So on to our guest. Today, I have on Amanda Miller Littlejohn, and I asked her to come on because last fall, I needed to find someone to help me just kind of organize my thoughts and really help me get NacheSnow.com off the ground. So here's the crazy thing, people. Like, yes, I've helped people get their businesses off the ground and like help people publish their passions. And I've started like several projects of my own. Like if you go over to creativeroute.com, you'll see the home decor I do. If you go over to startafashiontruck.com, you'll see a podcast that I co-host with Estrelle. And so, I've done like some other things. I've helped other people like, figure out their stuff. But do you know when you have like an idea that just makes like your stomach like kind of tingle a little bit, or you're like, man, I just, want to share all these things and I just want to do all this stuff. And so for years, like I've had this idea where I'm like, man, I want to interview all these cool people I meet. I want to teach people how easy it is to like put themselves out there. I want to encourage people to follow their passion. I've always wanted to write a book. Like my mom and grandma tell stories about me, writing little books when I was in elementary school. And so I'm like, I want to write like a cool book on design and branding and all kind of stuff, or, starting a business, like all this stuff in my head. Like, it's kind of crazy. If you come into my house, I have like notebooks and journals, like just full of stuff and full of ideas, right? And so I'm like, I need to create something where I can have all of this in one place, and I can, then put out like these different things, be it a book, be it a course, be it offering coaching, be it whatever. And so I think when you have something like built up in your head for a long time, even though you think you know what you should do, you can't move forward because you're just so excited. You just like start going in circles. So I'm like, I was listening to a Smart Passive Income podcast, and he was talking about like being part of a mastermind group himself. And this is a guy, if you look at I just did an article on income reports. So I did an article on people who post like how much they make a month. And, I also talk about what you can learn from it. But he like makes like $100,000 a month. And even so, this guy needs like a mastermind, and he needs to talk to people, and he needs to bounce people, ideas off of other people. And so I'm like, that's what I need, because I'm basically talking to myself, right? And I'm not talking to someone else who's really an expert in their field to help me figure out like how to start. And so I did a Google search, and I actually found Amanda's program, Package Your Genius. And I was like, man, this looks like this is what I need. And even better, it's actually like she's in the DC area. Long story short, I ended up signing up for the program, which was a couple of months long. And I'm so glad I did it, because it gave me the focus I needed. She gave tips about how to get exposure. Like I've implemented like most of those tips. And like now that I'm in a certain part of my business, like I'm going to start implementing the strategies that she taught us for like getting exposure, with the media. And so I knew I had to have her on here today, because she's about to actually open up her academy again, because she does it twice a year, to talk a little bit about what she does. And then, but peppered through the conversation, she talks about just her story in general. And she also provides amazing tips on figuring out like what services do you want to offer and how you offer it. Like she gives like pricing tips. She gives so many things. I talked to her even about books and like what books do for you. So we cover like a wide range of things. So interesting story and great tips for all involved. So anywho, I'll stop talking so we can get to Amanda. Here we go. Hello, Amanda. Thank you so much for coming on to the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to connect with you in this context.
Yeah, so for the listeners out there, Amanda has an academy called Package Your Genius Academy, which I took last fall. It was really good, learned a lot, it helped me get my head on straight and just like focus, right? And just go ahead and get my stuff out there. So I really appreciate it. But there were so many like good tips and things that you provided. I wanted to have you on the show. And you just have like such an amazing background too. So I thought that would be also like a cool story to like share with my listeners.
Well, I'm honored to share it. And it was, incredible having you in the academy. You were so inspiring, and hearing your progress and seeing what you've done. And even seeing this podcast come to fruition has been a wonderful experience for me to watch. And so just to be here and to participate and share with your audience and your listeners and your community is an absolute thrill and honor. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, let's start, it sounds so dramatic, but let's start from the beginning. Before you had your own business, can you tell us a little bit about Amanda Littlejohn?
Before my business, I guess that would be college. I studied English and history as a double major, and I remember taking that course of study because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with myself, but the constant for me had always been writing and communicating and sharing stories and really telling stories. So I chose English, and I even had the opportunity to do journalism. And I remember I went to a journalism class or workshop at school, and I said, this is too structured. I want to be able to do what I want to do. So no, I'm sticking to English. And then as I took history classes, I remember just really falling in love with how stories take shape in the context of history. So how everything that we see and experience has some sort of historical context, story, or implications. And so I really wanted to understand, that's one of my big things, is understanding how things come to be, which is funny because that's a really big part of my coaching is really understanding how people's personal histories affect their current situations, their careers, their businesses, etc. But anyway, I kept taking history classes and decided, you know what, I've taken so many of these, I should probably declare this a double major. So I did that, and it was really, for me, college was an academic journey and time of exploration. I literally did not start thinking about jobs and careers until like my senior year, which was a little bit late. Yeah. No, seriously, because I just said I'm going to study what I'm passionate about, what I'm interested in, and see where that goes. And so I kind of had that panic around senior year, like, oh my God, what am I going to do with English and history, right? Like, especially when you see the business majors and engineering majors that are, you know, going off for their internships and they have clear plans for the next step.
Yep, right.
So I kind of freaked out and started looking for opportunities to get experience using what I had. And I saw a flyer for a communications internship at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation and ended up landing that, and they turned it into a full-time job, which essentially kind of started me on the path of communications because I wasn't really aware before that point what all you could do if you had really strong communications skills and if you were creative and, you know, could write well and create marketing campaigns and different things that would connect with audiences. So that was where it all started, I guess, before I was a business owner, and held a couple of roles like that and then got into journalism after I said I wouldn't. And that honestly was the beginning of my career. Did journalism, and then after a layoff from a journalism role, started my business.
You know, that's so interesting, too, because sometimes that's what it takes, right? Like a layoff, or sometimes even, like, I've heard of the baby effect. Like, sometimes after someone has a baby, like, it's like this push to be like, you know what? I have this idea. Let me, you know, explore it and really, you know, put my all into it. So
it's funny because I had both.
At the same time?
Yeah. So I guess I got a double dose of kicking the pants.
Wow. So but that makes it even scarier, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm about to have the baby, or I just had this baby, I got this nice job, and then you get this layoff, and it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? So were you already kind of thinking about like venturing off on your own, or after the layoff, did you have to take some time to say like, what am I going to do next?
You know, I was actually really fortunate in that, and I say fortunate now because I've talked to so many people who were pondering going out on their own or starting their own business or doing something outside of their roles. But I was really fortunate in that the decision was made for me. The company was just not doing well and they were downsizing. And I had been thinking about doing something different only because, you know, I knew I needed to make more money. Especially as a new mom. And so I had been thinking about what I was going to do outside of journalism before the layoff, simply because I felt like I had to do something that paid more. So I think for me, you know, and in retrospect, I can say that, like, I don't feel like I was walking away from a whole lot, like, in terms of the golden handcuffs that a lot of people talk about today, where they're making these 6-figure salaries and they've got amazing benefits and they've been in it for so long. Like, I had just started my journalism career, and I was very fortunate to have a full-time, you know, writing job where I wasn't a freelancer. I was actually on staff. But because it still wasn't a ton of money, I knew I needed to create a pathway where I could make and earn more. And I didn't see other people who were in kind of on the trajectory that I was on making what I wanted to make, you know, anytime soon. You know, I was like, okay, maybe if I hang around for 10 years and can become an editor, but that's a big maybe because those jobs are really rare. So
Mhm.
I honestly just felt like, hey, I've got talents and skills that I truly believe can earn me more in the marketplace. So I want to get out there and see what they can do.
Mm. No, I totally agree because my degree, my undergrad was in mass communications, and it was like a concentration in graphic design. But I even remember, like, right when I was graduating, like the local paper, because I went to school in Grambling, Louisiana, and there was like a paper in like the other town or whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
I forgot what they wanted to pay me, and I was like, "What?" And then when I
Right.
looked up like how much designers made at newspapers, I'm like, this isn't gonna work, you know. And
Right.
I went to school with a lot of journalism majors too, and you know the trend was too. It's like unless you got one of those really high positions, which people didn't really leave, you weren't gonna make a ton of money there, you
Exactly.
know. So
Hmm.
so
But
so
how amazing is it that you were able to use your like what you're doing now, even though you took a different path, you've been able to use like all of these marketing and communication skills in what you're doing, charting out and carving out your own path for yourself as a business owner and as a community leader.
yeah, it's weird. I guess you know it's so interesting because I guess it's not the same for everybody,
Mhm.
but it's nice when you're fortunate enough to like kind of major in something that you're interested in, and then it you could use it even years later because it's been like what
Exactly.
like I don't know 20 years. I don't want to date myself, but
5 years,
right,
you know,
a
you
few
just
years, you
graduated.
know. So that's kind of like pretty cool. But so after you were laid off, like what does that process look like? Like as far as you figuring out like, okay, now I'm on my own, like how do I make money? Like how do I make a name for myself?
Well, it's funny, at the time I didn't know about making a name for myself so much as identifying what I had to offer and who could potentially buy it or who may be interested. And
Mm.
so for me, I kind of went through my network, people who I'd spoken to, worked with, interviewed,
Mhm.
and also looked at what I had to offer and what I thought might translate well in the general market,
Mm.
and just kind of put together a letter and sent it around to people. But I also did a ton of research. I went to bookstores and libraries and found, I mean, this was really before social media, and I mean, we had Google, but it wasn't like it is now, you know? And
Mhm.
so I
Mhm.
just read a ton of books about people who were writing because I figured, okay, I can write and I know people need writers. So how can I sell my writing services? That was where I started. I started very, very focused, you know, like I know I can do this and I know there are people doing this and earning an income. So I went
Mhm.
and picked up a book. I think it was like Six-Figure Freelance Writing Secrets or something.
It's
How to
like
start
tell me
a
all the secrets.
yeah, how to start a home-based writing business. So I
Mm.
still have those books. It's so funny. But those were really my education. That was before online courses and coaches and all of these people who could tell you how to do things. I really
Mhm.
just went out and found books on, you know, what were the market rates for writing for different industries, for different products. How much could you charge and how do you charge? Do you charge per word? Do you charge per page, per project? So I really did a lot of research and educated myself on what the people who were already successful in the space in the way that I wanted to be successful. What were they doing, and what were some of the standards of being a writer for hire?
Mm. Oh wow. And so, and it seems like you've like even it kind of went from just like writing to like PR to like branding. So how does that evolution take place?
It really evolved. You know, it's funny. I more and more, the longer I live and work and do things and have projects and things, I realize that, you know, there is a force God, if you will, the universe, if you will, however you relate to it, that I think is kind of inserting you in situations and putting you in front of opportunities that can help you unlock your truth and who you really are. And so I think that it's funny when I think back on those times, I'm still the same person and I'm really bringing the same skill set to the table. It's just packaged differently. So, so for now I really help people figure out what is unique about them, how do they market that and package that and tell their stories and get other people to listen. But that's the same thing I was really doing as a journalist. I was just focusing on a different audience, trying to get, finding people who had interesting stories and packaging it in a way for the paper that I thought would make the wider audience and readership care and be moved to do something, be moved to action. But in terms of the transitions along the way, when I started reaching out to people who could potentially become customers, it was my customers who showed me and really opened my eyes to all of my potential, right? So I would get put on a project and then I would do some writing, and then because I was good and a quick study and not afraid of a challenge, they would assign me, different things, more things. They would add to the scope. I remember this one nonprofit that I worked for. It was my first retainer client, and I remember, I literally got that job from a woman I'd interviewed for the paper who connected me to her colleague who was like her college friend, and they had once done some communications together. She was like, yeah, she's always looking for people. And that woman connected me to one of the members of her executive team that needed someone. And that person really gave me my first big break. I started out with writing, but she asked me, she's like, I need press to come to this event. I need help with event planning. I need help managing ad campaigns and buying ads for the metro stations and the buses for this big event we're doing. I need she needed all of these things. It was like all hands on deck, and she just threw me in. She just needed help. And I showed up and I said, I can do these things. And so I think, when you are open to rising to the occasion and taking on challenges, even when you don't know 100% the ins and outs of things, but you're willing to learn, you're humble enough to get in there and get your hands dirty and figure it out, and you're blessed and fortunate enough to have people who are willing to teach you and show you and steer you and give you feedback, then that's how that can evolve. And I think after working with that particular client, I realized that writing was just the tip of the iceberg, and that, writing was the beginning, but people needed so many other things that I actually was excited about delivering. And so that's how it evolved. In terms of the pivot to coaching, after I had done more of those full service projects and worked on media relations and, started doing that, had clients pull me into media projects where they said, write the press release. So I'd write the press release, but then, I would kind of see the process of pitching, and I learned that I could do that too. But for coaching, I did notice that despite being able to do a lot of things, I really gravitated towards the individual relationships, right? So I was working with an organization, but I think the thing about that organization was the director who I had the direct relationship with. I really liked working with her. And we even talked about building her brand and getting her media exposure as a thought leader, et cetera. But I realized that the common theme for me was, yes, I can market a nonprofit, an organization, but I'm really passionate about those people, the individuals who have stories and have something that they want to share, that they need to get out there, and that maybe they're a little under the radar, or, they're the underdog, or they're the unsung heroes. I'm really passionate about helping them come out from behind the shadows and tell people about the work that they're doing.
Yeah, that's amazing. And what I find interesting too is because on the other podcast I run with a friend, we'll interview fashion trucks. But
Mm-hmm.
for some of those businesses, it's like a $10,000 to $30,000 investment, and sometimes they don't make that money back for like a year or two, just depending on where they are and the other factors. Where in your case, it's interesting because it sounds like because of the need, because you had just got laid off, like you were forced to like figure out how to make money quickly and then eventually like make more and more, right? Even if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't start out with a ton in the beginning.
And, I wasn't doing everything that I ended up doing, but I started where I was. And I think a lot of people want to know the end of the story before they open the book, right? And it's like
Right.
sometimes the story evolves, sometimes the story emerges on the page in front of you, but you've got to open the book to even get into that experience. And I truly do believe that, momentum does come from acting. And if I had not said, okay, well, I can write, I can do that, let me start, there's no way I would have met the clients that would have put me in a position to begin doing event planning or PR or strategy or brand strategy. And so, for your listeners who are thinking about starting something and they're in that place that so many of us find ourselves in, where we're afraid to make one step because we don't know what every single step is going to be. Sometimes those steps are revealed.
Mm. And then what helped you, besides like, of course, the networking and the connections and taking risk and saying yes, right? What like strategies did you use to like even, put yourself out there more? Because I feel like you have like a huge social presence out there, which also takes work. So you have like clients, but then you're trying to still do Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and like all these different things. So what did you do to like put yourself out there to even get more exposure in the online world?
So it's funny, I did not know. It's so funny how things just happen organically. I realized very early on that there was a whole machine and industry and scene around communications in the DC area, which is where I am. And I realized that there were a lot of people who had been running successful businesses and had been in the game for years and years and years. And so for me, I knew I was going to have to do something in order to stand out and be considered as a contender, because here's this girl who's been this journalist, but who is she and why should we hire her for communications work? And so I said, well, the one thing I can do that I know I'm great at is writing. So why don't I start a blog? Literally, that was it. I was like, I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to start a blog because I can write. And I actually missed writing. So, because I wasn't a journalist anymore. And, when you are a journalist, you're trained to crank out stuff like every day. Like, so I missed the practice of writing and publishing and having an audience. And a friend showed me how to set up a site using Bluehost and WordPress. And I started blogging just to share my journey and to share and to connect with people and just to share what I was learning as a new business owner. And then social media kind of coincided with that time. So I was fortunate in that Twitter became a thing and I was an early adopter. But also was just super curious. I was very, very passionate about learning how to do these things and learning different tools that I could take back and use with my clients. And, when I'm passionate about something and interested in it, I go all in. And so for me, I would get on Twitter and take webinars and learn and go to conferences and then come back and write about what I was learning on my blog. And so before I knew it, I had positioned myself kind of accidentally as this person who was in the know, who was knowledgeable. And I remember I did this event, which I mentioned to you guys in the academy. I decided, well, a friend of mine said, did you do a launch party for your blog? And I said, no. And she said, well, why don't you do an anniversary party? And so I said, okay, cool. I'll do an anniversary party. But for me, like, I'm just not, I'm like, why would people just come to an anniversary party? It needs to have, a theme. It needs to have a topic. Like, it needs to be something more than just an anniversary party. So when another just sleight of fortune, seriously, so I decided to put together an event, and because I didn't think people would come just because it was for my blog.
Right.
And I wanted people to come who were interested in the content and not just me. So not just personal friends, people who were interested in the topics that I talked about on the blog. So I decided to do a panel about how journalists were using social media because I was no longer in the newsroom. I was super curious about, well, how are they navigating Twitter and all of these things, because we didn't have those things. Long story short, that event really helped to put me on the map in the DC area because I had a really incredible panel of journalists who shared how they were using social media. I mean, we had people from NPR, the Washington Post, ABC. Amazing, right? And so I had an audience, a packed room, come to hear from those journalists and be a part of this conversation. And I was kind of convening this community around a conversation and a question. And so that really helped me to build my email list, to grow awareness of me and who I was and what I was doing. And I just, I blogged and I shared my ideas, and it helped to create awareness of what I was doing. But I think it also helped to show people that I was passionate and knowledgeable about the very service that I could offer them, right?
Right.
And so it just grew from there, and it was totally just me following, again, just like majoring in English. It was just me following my interest and energy and passion, which is what I'm always encouraging my students to do.
Oh, wow. No, that's pretty cool, because it sounds like it was very organic. And, I think sometimes people think that there is this magic formula, but there really isn't, right? Like, you can, Instagram 3 times a day, tweet 8 times a day, do all of this stuff, that you think is a formula, but if it's not good content, if it's not of interest, if it's, nothing will come of it if you're not putting yourself out there in other ways to bring, attention to all these different places, like nothing will happen, right? So it's almost like just concentrate on being the best at who you are and putting out good content, and it's like things happen, right?
Yeah, I think, it's one of those things you do have to commit to some degree to, sharing something online, but I think it's not, I'll just share anything. As long as I post 3 times on Instagram, I will grow. I think it's really important to know what your motivation is and what you're trying to do with your content. So for me, I literally wanted to write, and then I was curious about what journalists were doing with social media. And so I think if you lead with your own curiosity and your own passion and interest, whatever becomes of what you create can only be something that is of interest, because people follow other people's passion. Right. It's like, I think people can tell when you're not really into whatever it is that you're doing.
And so it's like, I guess it's a combination of good content and consistency.
Good content, passion, like your passion or curiosity or interest, and consistency. Absolutely.
So you offer, like, I'm even looking at your website right now, like a lot of different things, which is pretty cool. So I just wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about because I'm looking at your work with me, and then you have a couple things under there, and then you also have your Package Your Genius Academy. So can you talk a little bit about the different things that you now offer?
Absolutely. So through my website, AmandaMillerLittlejohn.com, that's where you can learn about how to work with me one-on-one. And that's typically someone who is a little further along in their journey or in their career. So I get a lot of corporate refugees who are ready to start a business, and they really want to invest from the start to get their messaging together, their website together, do some PR around who they are and what they're going to become known for. And so it is the evolution of my PR consulting. So it's one-on-one high-level brand strategy and consulting, and it is everything from helping you get clear on what exactly you have to offer to how to describe that and the language, the writing, right? The writing of your message, to pitching you to media, getting you exposure that way, to developing your digital presence, building out your web presence, and helping you make sure that you appear the way that you really are online, because that's really where most people are finding out about us these days. And so through that, I offer a couple of distinct packages. I have strategy days, which are focused on either your brand strategy, your content strategy, your media strategy, or your sales strategy. So you can actually choose which direction that you want your day to go. And those people typically fly into Washington, D.C. to spend the day with me. And it's really incredible. Yeah. So that's pretty much the signature one-on-one piece. And then I have a few longer packages, but the Academy and the Branding Box, which the Branding Box is my signature home study toolkit, which all of the Academy members get. The Academy is really my foray into group learning and training. And I've just been so thrilled with bringing people together to learn together and learn from one another as well as from me, because I think there is power in watching other people have their own aha moments and transformations, and knowing that you're not alone, you know. So like I can tell you what to do and I can give you feedback and motivate you from my perspective, but I think when you are in a community of other people who are kind of going in the same direction, even when you're not feeling like, you know, you're doing what you need to do, you can kind of just catch that wave and jump on that train and ride it a little further until you can kind of get back into your own groove. And so the Academy, which you were a part of, and so grateful to you for, again, sharing this with your audience, happens twice a year. And so we're actually gearing up for the spring session. So the spring session will start in late March. So we'll be opening up registration for that in a couple of weeks. And so for anyone who's interested, they can learn more at packageyourgeniusacademy.com or just pygacademy.com. That'll get you there too.
And it's interesting because by the time this airs, I'll have another episode where I'm talking to someone who's actually a counselor, and she was kind of looking to get into speaking, which we haven't talked about, but I know you also do speaking engagements too. And then she's trying, we talked a little bit about like just the things she's trying to do, like packages and coaching and so forth. Like how are you able to figure out what you should offer and like the price? And, you know, because I think sometimes people get hung up, like they might even have like an audience, you know, they built this social media, but then now they're like, oh my God, I have to sell my services, but, you know, how should I sell my services? You know, how should I like price myself? And then, you know, because of fear or whatever, or because they just can't wrap their brain around like how to figure it out. Like sometimes they do nothing, or maybe, you know, they, you know, choose like something that might not be as lucrative because they're underselling themselves. So I was just curious, like, how were you over the years able to figure out like what you should offer and how to price it?
So in terms of what to offer, I think in the beginning I really looked at what was going on in the marketplace. But as I evolved and matured as a business owner, I really began to look more inward. And that's what I encourage other people to do as well. So, you know, there's a million different ways to package yourself for different opportunities to package your skills. And the same person, like you and I might have the exact same skill set, but we have different energy around different modalities, right? So you might get super energized. And I think I remember you saying you're an extrovert, so you get really energized by people. I'm an introvert, and so I can be energized by people, but I need a lot of alone time. So for me, just being a keynote speaker and that's all I'm doing wouldn't work for me. If I'm giving a keynote every day and I have to bring that high energy every single day, that wouldn't work. Now, I love speaking twice a month. That's plenty for me. But any more than that, it becomes an energetic drain. And so I think that you have to look at where you derive your energy, where you feel like you are most effective, where you can help people make the most transformation. And what does that typically look like? Is that a long-term relationship? Is that a short relationship? A short, intense, relationship like the strategy day? Is that a longer, lingering relationship like a 12-month mastermind program? Even with the academy, I honestly, for a long time, was very nervous about offering a group program because I wasn't sure if energetically I could do it. But I found that, about the 3 months, which was the length of the last academy, it was really powerful for me. And I stayed energized because I was so excited about what was happening both between the different members of the academy and then the things that, they were doing with the information that I was sharing. And so it was a bit of a risk because I wasn't sure how it would go. But I love it. And it's honestly the best thing I've done in a really, really long time. And so in terms of figuring out what you should do, I always advise people to think about where they get their energy, where their audience or clients are already getting results. We talk about what are people thanking you for? What are people coming to you for your advice with? And then what are you most comfortable? What format are you most comfortable showing up and being a vessel, right? Maybe it's simply writing books or, recording videos and creating online courses. Maybe that's your format where you think you shine the best and the people who need whatever transformation you provide respond the best. And then to answer the question about pricing, I think it's important to look at the market to see what other people are charging and to make sure you're not undercharging, but then to also know where you want to fit in terms of positioning yourself within that market. So, my products and services are not the cheapest products and services for a reason. Like I don't strive to be this, accessible to everyone. Like that's not where I fall because to me, I think the investment that you make also is tied to your investment mentally and kind of spiritually in the work that you're going to do. And so for me, I really want people who are all in on the work because I'm all in, and it takes a lot to show up and deliver that work. And so I want to make sure that you are just as invested as I am because I can't do it for you. So I think if you know that what you offer is a luxury service and you're kind of a luxury type person, you definitely need to be charging more just because of that, because that's how you want to be positioned. If you know you want to do more volume in your sales, so you're selling books or things or inexpensive courses because you have a million bazillion followers and you want to, connect with them that way and offer them something inexpensive, and that's kind of easy for you to create. Maybe that is how you go after it. So you have to look at, your audience, your energy levels, and what people are gravitating to you for already, as well as how you want to be positioned, and then package and price accordingly.
No, I think that's a great idea because even, I want to start offering some courses. And so some of the other people out there that, I've looked at that have kind of are doing similar things that I am doing, some of their courses are expensive and some are really cheap, like $25. But I'm like, man, I just know the level of work that I would put into a course, and I'm like, I can't mentally sell it for $25. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like
Right.
after you spend all the time like researching it and videotaping yourself and all the work that goes into it. Yeah, so it is. I agree with you. It seems like it is a personal choice. You have to figure out like who your audience is. Value
But
your time. And, yeah.
And then also pricing, when you talk about a $25 course, even if the course was super easy for you to make and you didn't care, having a $25 course says a lot about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's that's one of the things that I actually talked to a business coach maybe 4 years ago, and she was telling me how, even if at your current level people can afford you or they say you're too expensive, there's a whole world of people who may be coming to your website and seeing your low prices and thinking, okay, she's not for me because her prices are too low. Right. And so, I know a lot of people try to cater to the inexpensive market because they get feedback that, oh, I can't afford this, oh, I can't pay you any more than this. And they focus on the people who are saying, I can't afford. But what they don't realize is that there's this entire segment of people who's not saying anything because they've written you off because your prices don't match, who they are, right? So, if they're free and you're like, oh, here's my $25 course, they're like, oh, well, she must not be for me because I was ready to invest $2,500 or $25,000. And she only has something that's $25. So let me move on and find the person who has something more in the range that I was thinking.
Yeah, and then I have before I ask you a couple of wrap-up questions, I have a random question. So the listeners out there, basically, I'm really trying to get some free coaching from Amanda right now. So a lot of people, and I've heard I don't know, different things about this. So, but what do you think about books? Because I've heard people say you should write a book because it helps you become an authority in whatever you're trying to do. But then I heard that it's not really a lot of money in books. Even if you get a publisher, self-publish or whatever, normally, unless you're Elizabeth Gilbert or something, you're not going to necessarily be able to live off of it. So what are your thoughts on even investing the time in writing a book?
Well, I definitely don't think anyone should write a book for the money, unless what you're writing is just, oh my God, you have that perfect mix of a topic that everybody wants, and you've got a network and kind of a PR platform in place that's going to help you sell the book like hotcakes. Otherwise, and you're self-publishing, so you get to keep most of the profits. But I think that, you kind of have to divorce yourself from the idea of the book being a revenue generator in and of itself. But books are fantastic for branding you around a topic, positioning you as the expert in that topic, and attracting huge opportunities that you couldn't get without the book, right? So speaking engagements, corporate engagements, training engagements, different things that when people are vetting you, even media opportunities. I always tell people who are looking for media opportunities, a book is a great door opener with the media because it instantly says that this person is credible because they took the time to write down, what they know, and they have enough of it to fill up a book. And so I think that it's definitely worth the investment in time if it does nothing but it positions you in Amazon, in search, right? Because people are searching in Amazon for titles that are solutions to their problems. So if you can get found just through Amazon, that's huge. So I see books as being a great way to build your credibility, a great tool to help you get other opportunities like media engagements, speaking engagements, and those higher dollar clients that want to see, they want to work with an expert who is proven and credible, as well as I see books as being the basis for creating additional packages around workshop packages or group coaching packages. You could base training programs and workshops off of a book, but you can't, really do that. Like the book opens the door. So even if you took the book and you sent it to a corporate HR manager and said, hey, I wrote this book. I created a whole workshop series based on the book, and I would love to deliver that to your employees. Here's a copy of the book for you to review if you think, the content works for you and resonates with where you are and what your employees need to know. Then I would love to talk about how I can build a custom program around the book. So I see books as being a real tool, not necessarily to make revenue just from selling them one by one, but a way to make revenue because you can build so much around them. They're really powerful.
No, good stuff. Dropping knowledge bombs. I tell you, folks, worth every penny.
I'm going to hold you to that.
So two just random questions that really have, well, maybe they're sort of related to what we're talking about. But my first question for you is do you think you have found your passion, be it whatever, a hobby, whatever, and, if so, what is it? And if not, what are you doing to discover it?
So my professional passion or?
No, just kind of something that you, maybe even, besides what you do, because of course you love it, but just something else maybe that you do that brings you joy.
Oh, okay, yeah. So one thing that really brings me joy is music. I love music, and I've always kind of been a jazz lover, aficionado, etc. And when I was growing up, I took piano lessons for a few years, but then I had a really, really demanding academic schedule in high school. So at some point, I had to kind of give it up. But my children are taking lessons, and they are doing really, really well. And they are actually teaching me, and I'm kind of learning through them and starting to play a little bit more. But working with them and playing with them and learning how to improvise and play jazz and different things like that on the piano has been a major joy for me over the past year and a half or so. It was always something that I had put on my to-do list, hey, take piano lessons one day, pick that back up. And it's funny because it just kind of sort of happened that I've been able to learn through them and pick up things through them, and they show me little things, and I jump in and we do a little bit of that.
Cool.
So that's been awesome. Another thing that really brings me joy is nature. So I love going out into the woods to hike. I love going to the beach. I love anytime I can feel like I'm close to nature and I'm right there with it. That is my happy place, and it's where I want to be.
And what's one thing, it could be anything in the world, that you cannot live without?
Okay, so outside of people who I would say I can't live without, I can't live without my family. I think most people who know me would say it's pretty accurate to say that I cannot live without coffee. That's my thing. Gourmet coffee, really good coffee, cannot live without it.
No, I feel you. I need that too.
Coffee is not it's wrong.
A few months ago, I switched to tea, and I feel like I'm still going through withdrawals.
Yeah, and it's not just about caffeine. It's about the whole experience. The smell, the beans, everything.
Yeah.
Coffee. I honestly think, and I don't think I've ever shared this publicly, but my husband is always kind of poking at me about it. But I think before I die, I want to open a coffee shop. Have my own coffee shop. Yeah, that's always been something that I really wanted to do. So
I'll be there.
Right. I'll be having the academy meetings in person at the coffee shop.
Right. It would serve two purposes.
Well, I'll be caffeinated and just, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, where can the listeners find you?
I am pretty easy to find online if they want to go to. I have three websites, so I'll share those. AmandaMillerLittlejohn.com is where you can find out. You can read my writing and learn about working together one-on-one. PackageYourGeniusAcademy.com is where you can find out more about the mastermind training program that you were a part of, as well as training workshops and courses from some of our mentors, because we have a whole roster of mentors, and we're going to be rolling out some additional trainings this year from our mentors like Dr. Risha Moxley and Dr. Keith Stevenson, because they have expertise in different areas. So super excited about that. And then my last website is thebrandingbox.com, which is where you can learn about my signature personal branding toolkit. But I'm on Twitter at Amanda Mogul. I'm on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I love to connect with people there. And those are my main hangouts. I'm on Instagram too, but not as much as I am on LinkedIn and Twitter.
No. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I know people are going to find this really helpful. Hopefully they were taking notes, but if they weren't, they could always re-listen. So thanks a bunch.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I look forward to seeing you continue to blossom and do amazing things with your community, your podcast, and your business. So it's really a joy to see people who take action and move forward with their dreams and their goals. So congrats to you. And again, thanks so much for having me.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. Sometimes at the end, I'll do like a little wrap up, but I won't do that this time since we're almost at the hour mark. I'll just say that, man, she dropped some really good advice throughout this episode. So I hope that you guys use that in order to take your ideas, dreams, what have you, to the next level. The links to her websites will be in the show notes. You can find that on NACHESNOW. That's nachesnow.com/11. And all of the show notes will be there along with her website links and her social media links. The last thing I will ask you for, and this is my birthday, Mom, so if you haven't done it, I need you to do it. Please go over to iTunes and rate the show, Studio 78, 5 stars. That really helps the show and bring attention to it. And also, please share the episode. It really helps. And if you're not on iTunes, if you're on Stitcher or something else, please, if they allow you to rate the show there, please rate it, because ratings help bring exposure. So thanks to the folks that have already, and thank you to the people who are going to do it today, because you love the show so much, right? Okay. Anyway, thanks again to all, and to the next episode. See you guys later.